Hi there, everyone. Gwen Jones here, and welcome to another episode of the Action to Impact video cast. This week, I'm going to be talking to Brian Rodolfo, who is the president and CEO, the buck stops with him, guy from the Cabot. And what is the Cabot? The Cabot is a 1920, let me rephrase that, built in 1920 theater that's right down the street from me. And why am I turning that into a topic for the Action to Impact video cast? Really easy. We're going to talk about the arts, and perhaps the arts that are under attack here in the United States and around the world, from where the arts should go, who is in charge of the arts, how the arts should be funded. And as you well know, if you are a fan of the show, we have had Rotarian artists, everyone from Darren Jones and onward, on this show talking about their art. But what's going to be interesting about Brian is that he's going to be talking about the arts themselves and how the arts need to be funded and how the arts need to be loved and how the arts need to be part of our life. Anyhow, it's a great conversation. And as always, I'm super happy that you've joined me. So sit back and enjoy this video version. Make sure you translate it into one of the 30 languages if you need to. And remember that the Action to Impact podcast and videocast are made possible by generous donations from people like you. So check out the website and or our Facebook page of how you can help keep this wonderful show going. And why have I started adding this? It's really easy. The show's getting bigger, and consequently, the bandwidth to get this out to all these countries has gotten a little expensive. So that's my plea to kick off the show. Sponsor it, if you will. And on a happier note, if you'd like me to pack up all this stuff and join you at your event, hey, get in touch with me. Message me through Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, or of course, email me at rotarianpod@gmail.com. In other words, the video podcast can hit the road and end up in your front door whenever you'd like us to. All right then, let's get to the talk, shall we? We're talking about the arts this week on the Action to Impact videocast. And as always, I'm super excited that you've joined me. Welcome back to the show, everybody. Well, a couple of years ago, I got some emails saying that I did a show on arts, the arts, when I interviewed painter Darren Jones, and we got way geeky into way the arts. And so I'm getting geeky again, but this time it is with a Rotarian. His name is Brian Rodolfo, and he's from my club. So I didn't have to go very far at all, but he happens to be the president and CEO of the Cabot. Now, what is the Cabot? Because I'm talking to people all over the world. The Cabot is my local, independent community theater that it was built in 1920. So it has had movies in it. It's had stage in it. It's had concerts in it. And in this time where the arts, I feel, are needed more than ever, but perhaps our political situation isn't necessarily as friendly to the arts, I wanted to talk to another guy whose arts were his life, his vocation, as we say in Rotary. Brian, welcome to the show. Thank you for a podcast about art. How are you doing?
Thank you for having me. I love to talk about the arts. I love to talk about the performing arts, and I really love to talk about the Cabot.
Okay, so now one thing that I think is highly neglected in Rotary as a whole is how many performers and artists that we have, fine artists, culinary artists, that we have in Rotary. And so I also do these shows because I think the arts are sometimes forgotten about. Do you think sometimes the arts are forgotten about?
I think oftentimes the arts are forgotten about.
Okay.
They're so important to everyday life. I think when people think about the arts, a lot of people think that it's where you go for entertainment. It's where you go to see a concert, and that's kind of it. But there's so much
Or
more.
it's snooty.
Or it's
Hot
snooty.
snooty.
It's snooty. I'm
Right.
kind of okay with the snooty designation. I've been accused. But But um, no, I think the importance of the arts, it goes so much deeper in that. It's where we learn empathy. It's where we learn how
Hmm.
to work with other people. And it's where we learn creativity. I mean, even if you're, a scientist working in a lab, that ability to think kind of on your feet and outside of the box that the arts can teach you can be extremely beneficial to what you do. So the arts are important in every field, not just for the sake of art. Although I have no problem with art for the sake of art either.
Right. So we hear there are two words here in I can't even say North America anymore because we sometimes forget that Mexico, which is a country that is totally embraced his art.
Hmm.
Um, Even countries now like Saudi Arabia and Dubai are so getting into arts. Um, so are we somehow kind of thinking that maybe in America there seems to be kind of a stifling of the arts when the rest of the world is very art friendly lately?
I think without a doubt,
Really? Okay.
yeah, like right now, I mean, just the NEA's funding, although it ended up not getting cut, it was being threatened. The somehow the arts always gets tied into politics, which
It is called the liberal
the
arts.
liberal arts. Well, I'd say, but that's the thing, right? So that there's this sort of this feeling that the arts is somehow a liberal or a leftist um, institution, and
Right.
it's not the case. But I think, is it woke? I think that's kind of where the wokeness kind of comes from. But that's the job of the arts. It's to turn around and shine a light on society and say, hey, here's what we're seeing. Here's the things that we need to be focusing on. And a lot of times those are progressive ideas. Um, and the arts are, like I said, shining the light to bring that to the forefront. So, yeah, go
Is
ahead.
art supposed to shock you?
I
Is
don't know
art
if it's
supposed to make you
supposed to
uncomfortable?
shock you.
Okay.
I think it's there are certainly many performances I've been to where that is the purpose.
Okay.
Um, I tend not to gravitate just personally too much for um, art for the sake of shocking as the main point.
Hmm.
I prefer it when it has some other underlying meaning. Now, that underlying meaning may be shocking, but I think sometimes, especially in the performing arts and theater, um, I've been to a number of shows where I just left feeling, well, clearly the director's point was to shock the audience and just, you know, get people out of their comfort zone, which is great and important, but not when you're doing that at the sake of the material, right? The material has an underlying meaning and definition, and you need to bring out the shocking moments within that art. And I think a lot of times choices can be made just for the sake of oh, this could be a real gotcha, a real shocker. And I personally don't gravitate towards that. Um, I don't mind when it's done in the context of the work that's being performed, whether it's dance, whether it's theater, even if it's just, I should say just, but live, interactive arts. When you go to a performance art show, um, there needs to be something more beneath to kind of give meaning and context to the shocking moment.
Well, and I know art has always been used politically and religiously. You go to the Sistine Chapel not only to see the beauty of it, but pretty famous guy did a little bit of painting there. Okay. You go to Mexico City or you go to, other places where art can be by, Picasso. If you go to Madrid, you've got these world famous artists that one could argue in their time were incredibly religious and or political, but now all these years later they're just looked at as beautiful, magnificent pieces of art. In this time where art has been so spotlighted of being either good, bad, religious, not political, yes, are we going to look in the future and come back to some of these pieces and go, wow, that's just a beautiful Brad or a beautiful blah, blah,
Right.
blah, you
Right.
know?
Um, I hope so.
You
I
hope
mean, I
so?
have to say that right now I don't um I think one of the things that we're kind of suffering from in the arts right now, especially in the kind of theater that we do, you had said that we're a community theater. I think I'd like to amend that a little bit and say, because for me that has a specific connotation of we do plays and we invite community
Don't do
members.
Oklahoma with the high
Right,
school kids.
exactly,
Okay,
exactly. And I
fair
think
enough.
I like to say we are the community's theater. So
Fair
we're
enough.
here to do much more than the arts, but so much of it ends up being commercial, and it's hard for us to get support for the true art of it. Our bread and butter is rock and roll concerts. Um, and that's important, and that certainly is art in its own right. But to get people to come to a dance show, to get people to come to a play, or to sit through a classical music concert, is getting harder and harder. So I worry that the pop art is really kind of the direction that we're headed, and I think that tends to be such um, sort of a snapshot of the times that I don't know how much staying power some of that's going to have. And I also just look at, there were times where um, the body of work just in general is growing exponentially. So
Okay.
it's so much harder for, and just because of modern technology, population's growing, there's just so much more of it out there. You look back to, early music, early classical music. I mean, it was all centered around the liturgy, right? I mean, that's
Right.
that's kind of what it was, and there wasn't a lot of people doing it. So that's what we still have from that time. And then it
There
branched
isn't
out a
too
little
many
bit more.
Medicis winning to flip the bill for artists these days.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Right,
Okay.
right. But also just, I mean, it's so easy now for everybody to produce art, which is great. I mean, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I think it's a great thing. But it does kind of just put this great body of work out there that it's going to make it hard. The things that stand out are going to be extra extraordinary. Is that a saying? Can you say
Yeah, no,
extra
I like it. I like it.
extraordinary?
And we've been talking about art on a very grand scale. When
Right.
we've hinted a little bit about religious art, we've hinted a little bit about political art. But let me get this question out of the way. And you were like, don't give me any gotcha questions. But
Uh-oh.
this in its own way is a gotcha question. What is art?
What is art?
I know
Wow.
it could be a podcast in itself, but
Yeah,
what is
right.
art?
That
I
is a gotcha
mean,
question. I mean, I definitely am a believer in that answer is going to vary based on the person that you're asking. And I mean
yeah,
that like quite literally. Like I could look at something and say that's art, and you
a
could look
banana
at it
with
and
duct tape
say,
on a,
right,
yeah.
exactly. Or, I
And if you
remember
guys
I
don't know what
went,
that meant, look it up.
yeah,
There's literally a piece of art that sold of millions of dollars that was
millions of dollars.
banana with the duct tape. Just look
Right.
it up.
Well, and then you've got like Banksy who, had the sold his painting for was it $8 million and shredded it. Um,
Yes.
that was that, but I would say that more so than the actual painting, the shredding was the art in that
Right.
moment. That was definitely a gotcha moment done for shock value, but I
Right.
think there was underlying art and meaning behind that, and it it was part. I mean, that was what made the piece. So now this shredded canvas that I'm sure it's hanging in the guy's house, paid $8 million for it or in a museum. That's now the art. Um, but no, for me, art is anything that moves you and and causes you to think, right? So you don't even have to like it. I would use the example when I was living in New York, I went to see an exhibit in a gallery and it was kind of along the lines of the duct tape banana thing. There
Uh-huh.
were various pieces of scrap plywood, and they were mounted on the wall at different heights. And there were like one edge may have been painted blue, or there's maybe like a swoosh of paint across one. And I remember being mad when I left that
What
exhibit.
the hell? That was 20
Exactly.
bucks.
It's like one of those like I could do that.
I could
But
do that.
the thing
Yep.
is, but I didn't, and I
But you didn't.
paid to get into that.
Yep.
So, and it caused an emotion in me. I had suspect it was actually the emotion that the artist was going for. But that's art. That's art. Whether, it's my kind of art, but yeah, so I really think that's what it is. It's anything that moves you and causes you to think. Um, and it makes for a wide category of it. I look at modern marketing materials. Some of that stuff is the best art that I've ever seen.
All right. And Andy Warhol will tell you that pop art put him on the map. A canvas soup,
Exactly.
you know.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. So we've talked very broadly about art, and I'm not willing to put out into the universe that a Trump balloon dressed up in a baby diaper 60 years from now is going to be a work of art. But you never know. You never know. Art
It'll
is
be
just that.
remembered.
It'll be remembered. But let's trickle down a little bit. Tell me a
Okay.
little bit about you, because I know you're Rotarian and all that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
and we talk a lot about all that kind of stuff. But one, you're a corporate Rotarian, which I think is very interesting. The
I
Cabot
am.
joined Rotary as corporate. Um,
I
so
suspect that was just so Jackie could get more money out of me.
probably,
But
yeah. Shout out to Jackie for sure. But I, they don't really have a position in college to I'm going to be the president and CEO of a small theater in Beverly, Massachusetts. I mean, what is
yeah,
how do you become a how
there's
do you get to be in charge of an ultimate arts playhouse?
yeah. So my journey has been very different from most. There is a degree that you can get fairly recently, in arts administration. And
Cool. Okay.
so you can go that route, and your intent the entire time is I'm going to be an arts administrator. But um, I find not a lot of people follow that path. Um, I think there was a time maybe 20, 30 years ago, where, at least in the performing arts world, for big performing arts centers, it was kind of that impresario model. It was somebody who, had the grand vision for what the product on stage was going to be. And it
Right.
was really kind of mission driven that way. And then we started building these huge performing arts centers all over the country, and they're very expensive to build, they're very expensive to run. So more and more we've moved away from that impresario kind of model
The
to
Carnegie Halls of the world and the right.
exactly,
Okay.
exactly. And but we moved into really a development driven world. So it became the fundraisers that became the CEOs of these large organizations. So that is not at all the world that I came from. My degree is actually in lighting design. I was a lighting
Cool.
designer for the stage. I did that for a while. Realized there probably wasn't a hugely lucrative career in that. So I moved over into production management. Um, so I worked with Broadway across America. I managed all of their venues and all their shows for them, in South Florida and a couple other venues around the country. And I was the technical director of a small little 300 seat theater, very similar to the Cabot, a building that was going to be torn down. A group of
Mm.
citizens came in and rescued it and made it a performing arts center. Um, I did that for a while. While I was doing that, I was working with architects on the side to actually design and build theaters and theater systems, because
Cool.
they're very specific buildings, and you kind of have to work in them to know um, what needs to go in there. Why do you need 1200 amps of electric service? That makes no sense, but you do. Um, and so I did that for a long time. And then my wife and I had our little girl, and I was working, not exaggerating, 110, 120 hours a week, like 16-hour days for, a month at a time. And I said, um, I'm not going to miss my daughter growing up. I can't do this anymore.
Right. Right.
So I was fortunate enough to be at a place where, just right place, right time kind of a thing. There was a programming position that opened up. Programming in this sense means picking the shows, negotiating the contracts with the
Cool.
agents, and
Yeah.
kind of designing the artistic mission. It's kind of like what the impresarios would have done. So I fell into that in a small theater. Uh, I got a call from a friend of mine who ran the Kravis Center, or ran the programming department at the Kravis Center, which is in Palm Beach, the big performing arts center in Palm Beach. And he had asked me if I'd be willing to move over and work with him to program there. I said absolutely. I thought that's where I was going to retire. He was going to retire in a few
You
years,
were
and I was
done.
going to take over, and that's it. But while I was there, I got an offer to be the vice president of programming at a big performing arts center, the Peace Center in Greenville, South Carolina, beautiful place.
Yeah, it's a beautiful place.
And so the gentleman that I was working for didn't have plans to retire for a number of years. And I said, well, here's this opportunity to step into the VP slot now. So I made that move. I did that for about 6 years, and I decided I want to sit in the big chair. Like I really, want to set
Chair,
direction.
little theater though.
Exactly. Big chair, little
Gotcha.
theater. Yes.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I want to set direction. I want to, be able to influence the education programs and the outreach programs, and more so than just what shows are happening on our stage. It's very hard nowadays to make that move into the CEO role from a programming position. As I mentioned
Right.
earlier, they tend to come from development. Um,
Right.
so I got a phone call about the CEO position at the Box Center, the big theater in Boston. And I said, well, there's no way I'm actually going to get that job. That's not your first CEO role. But I'm going to keep an eye on who does get it. And it just so happened that the gentleman, Casey Soward, that preceded me here, got that role. And so I started paying attention to the Cabot and just randomly someone I've known for a long time had the search for this position and called me. And now here I sit in
Now
the,
here you
he
sit.
said, big chair, little theater. I was
There you
at the
go.
venues I was at before. We had multiple theaters, the biggest being like 2,200 seats, going down to 300. My last venue, I had six different venues. So here at the Cabot, I've got two, 850 seats and 120 seats, but both great venues. And we do lots of great stuff.
So, one thing I found very interesting about the Cabot is that it was built for stage production. A lot of the beautiful quote unquote theaters that we have outside of New York are usually some of these fantastically ornate movie theaters or movie houses of the 1920s. I had the honor when I was in my 20s to work at the Fifth Avenue Theater, which is modeled off of the Chinese Emperor's throne room. So not
Oh,
only look up the Cabot, but look up the Fifth Avenue Theater. And it was a movie theater. It was a silent movie theater. So when it was going to either be torn down, which just seems like sacrilege, because I think of theaters like that as almost churches. I mean, they're absolutely gorgeous
they are churches for some of us,
for some of us, exactly.
right?
So then it is now a live performance theater. But the Cabot's rather old school. It was built for stage.
Yeah, well, no, so it was actually built as a movie house, but it
Okay,
was
so it was a movie
also,
house.
yeah, it was a movie
Okay.
house, but it was also the vaudeville house. So it was kind of dual purpose.
Ugh.
Yeah, it was dual purpose, built in the silent film era, um, and but a stage for vaudeville acts to come and perform. Um, a number I like to share with people, because this is mind-boggling to me, is at one time there were 20,000 of these movie palaces throughout the country. There's just over
Wow.
200 now. So, and
Okay.
they're all, yeah,
Wait. 20,000 of like my
20,000.
beloved Fifth Avenue and the
Right.
Cabot
From
and
yeah,
all
from
over
every
the.
scale. So the Cabot is kind of a mid-size one at 850 seats. There's some like I think like Fifth Avenue would be one. How many seats is that?
It was just about it when it was totally full, about 1,000. Yeah, so it's not
Okay.
very big. Yeah.
But I know well like the Wang Theater in Boston was one. Well, Radio City was one. It's 6,000 seats. The Wang was
Right.
3,000 seats. But then they went down to like we have the Larkham, which is right around the corner from us. Beverly's lucky enough to have two historic movie palaces here, but the Larkham seats 500, 550. So they were built at every scale, but they're all just beautiful inside. We just don't build venues like this anymore.
So because I would love it. You do show movies there,
We do
and
show
there are
movies.
many of these movie palaces that
Mhm.
show movies. And now that a lot of our quote unquote modern movie theaters are shuttering, they're down. I mean, because most
Yeah.
people, is there perhaps an opportunity not only for the stage, but for some movies to start recreating times of old and bringing people back into movie theaters, but the movie theaters are these show palaces?
I think that's what you're going to end up seeing, which is
Okay.
it's
So a
interesting.
renaissance almost in a
So
way.
a renaissance, specifically of these old movie palaces, um,
Mhm.
like the Cabot, because most of us that are still operating tend to do diverse programming. So many of them are not just film. Their film and live performance,
Right.
but it's that live performance that really keeps the doors opened. And so we have the ability to show movies, whereas these multiplex theaters, um, the product just isn't out there anymore. It's really
Yeah.
expensive. Things spend a week or 2 weeks in the theaters and then go to Netflix. Um, but we have the opportunity because we don't have to maintain these, 18 screens, um, to really select the movies that we want to show and curate it for an audience to come in and have that shared experience. I don't care how elaborate your home setup is. And
It's
and
not
I'm
the same.
guilty. I mean, I kind of have one. It is different when you're sitting
Yeah.
in the theater. Lines just land funnier when there's other people laughing at them
Mhm.
with you. Um, and we were lucky enough this past November, there was the Ken Burns Revolutionary War series that he
Yep.
did. So that aired live on PBS with a new film every night or a new episode every night.
Episode, right?
We showed them live at the Cabot. We were the only ones in the country that showed them live.
And
Um,
why?
that's thanks to the Beverly Historic Society and Abby Battis,
Yeah.
who basically had a relationship with Ken. A lot of the Beverly Historic Society, a lot of the photos, I should say, that were in that series came from the Historic Society. Um, so they had this relationship, and Abby approached us, and we said, absolutely, we want to do that.
Yeah.
So that was
The
Abby that made
idea
that
that
happen.
Ken Burns is the unknown treasure of the Beverly area,
Yeah.
that you're from
Yeah.
this area, it's like I have this great movie house. Why don't I do it there?
Exactly. But sitting and watching, and we had great crowds for that. We had some people that were there every single night, and these were 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock, on weekdays. Um, and there were lines that
Getting
I
history
laughed out.
lessons.
History, exactly, exactly. But there were certain things that happened in some of the episodes that I laughed out loud that I know I would not have laughed out loud if I was sitting at home and watching it with, just my wife or just by myself. So it's
So,
that shared experience.
and we are in New England. So I do know that every single summer, and this year I am finally in town. We are not that far away from Martha's Vineyard and the Cape
Mhm.
and Cape Cod. That's where they filmed Jaws.
That's
So
where they filmed
I
Jaws.
think it is really fun that every single year the Cabot does a showing of Jaws because
And
it's right around the corner.
yeah, we do two because it was so popular. We do two screenings of it, one just for members, because some of the members were kind of getting shut out. So we said, all right, we'll do a special member showing. And then we do
My
one for
30
the
or
public.
50-year-old
And
movie,
but
please.
right,
Yeah,
that's what I say. We're talking about a 50-year-old movie that
right.
we're selling, I don't think we're selling both theaters out, but we're selling, 600 tickets to each showing. Um, so that, well, it's free for members, but for the other one, we're selling the tickets.
Yeah,
Um,
but there's some movie theater guys who may be listening to this podcast all over the United States that would love to be showing
yeah,
again and again, guaranteed 600 some
exactly.
odd people in their multiplex. Yeah,
Exactly. But I think that you nailed it though. I mean, that movie was filmed, not too far from here, and it has a special meaning for people, in New England on the coast.
right.
And so I don't know that that would work in South Florida. But here people love it and they come year after year.
So are the arts in good shape? Or I mean, I know I asked this question now, but I know there's probably at the beginning, but I know there's got to be some people going, hmm, when was the last time I actually went and saw some art? Hmm,
Right.
when was it? So maybe I should ask the question, is it possible for the arts to be a good shape?
Um, So, I mean, the arts are always going to need money. They're always going to need those, special patrons that are going to
Viewers like
support the
you.
arts. Exactly, exactly. And I'm not just pitching for the Cabot. Please support your local arts associations and arts groups. Um, but I mean, so there's groups like the Cabot and the big performing arts centers where we're very well able to self-sustain. Like I said, we've got the live performances, we do the concerts and things that kind of make money that allow us to do the more education outreach, what I call mission-based program, the more cultural
Right.
programming. We still need support, but we're able to carry on through rough times. But a lot of the smaller organizations just aren't. I look at symphonies in particular, huge payrolls, and losing, interest in the particular art form. So, I mean, I think to answer your question, it depends on what sector we're talking about.
Okay.
Are the arts healthy? But also, the arts certainly live and die by how the economy is going. Um, it's kind of a
Okay.
weird juxtaposition in that, at times where people need the arts the most and they need a diversion and to be taken away from their world, that is when they have the least discretionary income to do it. To buy a ticket to a show, to go see that
Right.
movie. When we're worried about gas being $5 a gallon, $75 for a concert ticket all of a sudden seems like a luxury that maybe it didn't a month ago.
Right.
So, um, I mean, there's always going to be an appetite for the arts. There's always going to be people that are there to support and people that want to go and take what we offer. Um, but there's certainly hard times ahead, and like I said, we're on the one hand we get a little boost because the people that have tend to look for more escapism, but on the other hand, we lose a good portion of people who are able to come out and make it. Um, we try and do everything we can to make tickets affordable. We donate a ton of tickets to VetTix, which gives free
Oh,
tickets
nice.
to veterans. We participate with the Massachusetts EBT Card to Culture. So if you receive EBT benefits, you can come for us and get extremely discounted tickets, if not free tickets, to shows that we offer. And these are our mainstream shows. They're not just the ones that aren't selling. Um, we don't do it for every single
We
show
might
because
even squeeze you
sometimes
into Jaws. You
yeah,
never know.
exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
We don't do it for every single show because sometimes the deals that we have to make with the artists and the agents are just prohibitive and we can't get it in there. But we do
Right.
try to get it into most. But yeah, I mean, I think the bottom line is support your arts, support your
Support
local
your arts.
artists. Even if that doesn't mean donating, if it just means buying a ticket, buy the ticket.
And I should say also don't limit what you believe art is.
Right, right. Try something.
Anything, try something new. Yes.
I've always wanted to start a series that, well, this is a podcast that's going to go out wide, so I'll amend what I really want to call it. But I wanted to call
Okay.
it the just
Just
insert word
blanket.
here, just blank and trust me shows to
Yeah.
where, I will book shows that I guarantee you will have an amazing time. And it's probably going to be something you would never think to buy a ticket to, but come buy a ticket and experience this. Um, we actually had a program like this when I was at the Kravis Center, and it was called Peak Provocative Entertainment at the Kravis. But we offered $5 tickets to different community groups, and we would basically give those tickets out, and you would come see shows like, I don't know, it could be um, uh, I don't know, Urban Bush Women, who's a dance company out of New York. Great company.
Awesome.
It could be, there's this great group called Daka Braka out of the Ukraine that does traditional Ukrainian music, but
I'd
they
do
kind
that.
of put a modern spin on it. Things that nobody's going to buy a ticket to, but the people who came to see them come back to every other show that we offer in that series because they're just so great. So it's just, expand your horizons. And we need to make it accessible. I'm not going to ask you to spend $50, but
Right.
five? take a chance.
Take a chance. I remember years ago, a friend of mine said, "We're going to go see the Toko drums." And I'm like, it's a whole bunch of like guys in loincloths banging on large drums. This is what I want to go see. It was mind blowing. It's
Yeah,
an
yeah,
ancient Japanese drumming art. And I'm like, okay. And
yeah.
now, whenever I see that there's one in town, I'm like, oh, we're going. We're
Yeah,
going.
no, it's amazing. You just literally feel it when they have that show. The big
Oh,
bass drums reverberate through your body.
they're awesome. All right. So I got two more questions for you, and I'll let you get back to the art world.
Okay.
Um, so the first one I find very interesting. Right now in North America, throughout Europe, and of course in the Middle East, there are some of by far the wealthiest people we've ever known in our lifetime. And a lot of people compared it to the Gilded Age here in the United States or the Age of Kings in Europe and others. But there was, even if you go back to Roman time, a kind of bread and circus. Like, I'm going to pay for the arts to keep the people happy. And then in the
Yes.
Gilded Age, that gave us the Metropolitan. That gave us, everything from the art at Grand Central Station to Carnegie Hall and Rockefeller Center. If those names were because they're built by the people.
Right,
Okay.
right.
You know, the Guggenheim. So it's really very easy. Right now, I don't see the Bezos Center of the Performing Arts or
But you
the,
see the Trump Center.
well, no, well, okay, no politics. And
Yeah.
that can easily, a little crazily removed. It'll take that down. But but it is true. I mean, Trump has always been a brander, but we know that the King of England right now makes sure that he has arts and arts education throughout the kind of things. But we have, and I guess one of the most magnificent art museums is going up in Dubai and Saudi Arabia and different things.
Mhm.
But we have multi billionaires out there, and we don't have the new Met. We don't have the new Carnegie Hall. It do we just is that just not going to happen? Is it just not important anymore?
I don't know that it happens on that same scale anymore, but I mean, it certainly happens, and
Okay.
it's something that I find very interesting. Is that this kind of varies region by region. Like I always
Mm-hmm.
joke, it's say in Palm Beach. I don't know if I should say this. I'm going to say it anyway. In Palm Beach, it was kind of easy to raise money. You just had to go to someone and say, "Hey, your neighbor just gave me $5,000, and we put their name on this thing, and they'd write you a check for $10,000." But
Right.
in
Hence why we
Greenville,
have the Met as
right,
opposed to the
right.
Metropolitan Art. Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
Exactly. But I will tell you, in Greenville, South Carolina, our major donors didn't want their name on buildings. I find that a lot here in New England too. So we get money from people, but they don't necessarily want it out there wide. So
Huh.
people are certainly giving, but I don't know that anymore they're giving the, $100 million to build the next Met. Um, they donate to programs, they donate to people. So where we get, we got a lot of capital contributions to renovate the facade of the Cabot, well, and just the building in
Right.
general. It's over $10 million over the course of 10 years.
Wow.
Um, so and I can think of lots of examples of things like that, but also we get, $25,000 from various organizations to run our In Focus, our student film program. Money to for the we have a Kids at the Cabot, like a family series that we do. We get
Right.
money donated towards that. So you don't always necessarily see the huge checks that are being transacted. There's lots of smaller donations that are kind of happening sometimes behind the scenes. And even if we do brand it with somebody's name it's sponsored by, like that's all they want. They don't want it to be big and huge out there. So no, I mean, while I
The
definitely
showing off is just we just don't show off
we
anymore.
just don't show off that much anymore. And I mean, and is
Huh.
there a certain amount of people just kind of holding on to their wealth? I think so, or investing in other areas. Like you mentioned Bezos. I think Jeff Bezos certainly spends a lot of money, not so much on the arts, but he's trying to blast us off into space, is
Maybe
where
he's going to put an art
he's spending.
museum on the moon.
Maybe he's going to put an art museum on the moon, but The flip side of that is that his ex-wife um, is donating millions and millions of dollars all around the country
Hmm.
quietly. Like you've probably not even heard about this, but
Right.
there was oh, I can't think of who it was, but there was a local group here on the North Shore that I think just got $500,000 from her. So there's lots of quiet giving
So it's
like
still
that.
happening, not just the grandioso. It's,
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, I mean, the
and
Gates Foundation gives lots of money out, and Warren Buffett. I mean, people certainly give. Um,
well,
yeah,
and on the other side, the next time that you cringe for walking into Walmart or you love Walmart, I think one of the families that's responsible for a lot of the indigenous and or folk art in the United States are the Waltons, the
exactly.
people that gave you Walmart, the wall part of
Right.
Walmart, um, are investing millions, if close not to billions of dollars in folk art from all over the world
Yeah,
to
right.
keep the
So
folk art
yeah,
alive.
it's out there and it's happening. There's still that spirit of giving that happens. It's just quiet.
It's
Um,
just quiet
People
giving.
don't like to show off on it, and it could just be because they don't want to be inundated by 100 other people getting in line. But whatever the reason, as long as
True.
it keeps coming,
Songs that
the
keeps
arts are
coming.
good.
All right. Last but not least, there
Yeah.
has been some amazing studies that have come out on the arts and autism and the arts and Alzheimer's.
Hmm.
And we're not trying to do a whole A episode here, but it is really, you know, it is it is fascinating how the arts are helping people get their memory back, helping autistic children stay focused, people with verbal issues like stuttering, once they sing, that stuttering is gone. I know I'm dyslexic, and so music or patterns was always made it much easier for
Hmm.
me to learn. Um, so there's all of this around art and the science of art and your brain reacting to art. Is that an avenue that could really help the arts? Could quote arts and sciences really start
Yeah.
to be the savior of arts in our
Yeah.
next years?
So, in fact, there's a lot of people that are actually working on this. Renee Fleming,
Mm-hmm.
the brilliant soprano, has an organization called Music in the Mind, and
Mm.
she'll come in. She'll like if she's coming in for a performance, she'll do the night before or the night after. She'll do a program where she'll work with local doctors, and it's really
Wow.
focusing on. You mentioned Alzheimer's, like Alzheimer's, dementia specifically on music's ability to heal those things. But she also encourages people during that to, you know, this is my area of focus, but you find yours. And,
Right.
you can work towards, whether it's autism, whether it's, whatever ailment that you choose to adapt your art to help that. I could think of another gentleman, his name's Kevin Spencer, a musician, who actually retired from touring. He had a very successful career as a magician. Um, Retired from touring, got his PhD in neurology, maybe. I don't remember. But anyway, he's got this incredible program where he uses magic. He goes into schools and he works with schools to develop curriculum to work with autistic kids to get them out of their
Wow.
shell. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different places where this happens. I have another friend who's a great pianist and a composer, and she has a program where she works with autistic kids. And it's all about, yeah, I mean, so it's happening, it's out there. And I think the scientific community definitely has latched onto it because it works, right? I
Because it
mean,
works.
what do
Art
you,
therapy, you've got
yeah,
people, all different types of things.
yeah, but what do you need to see in science? Results, and they're seeing results. So it's, you know, just spinning off more and more research.
So I asked you in the very beginning how art is doing. I
Mhm.
asked you kind of in the middle how art is doing. And now after I've asked you every single question, is it the last thing to say is the arts are where we want them to be and will stay in good shape, but it's totally up to us? Is that kind of
I think that
synopsis is of what this all is?
I think that is accurate. It really is. It's that last part of that. It's up to you, right? I
It's up to
mean,
you.
the arts can thrive, but you have to support them. And again, I'm not talking about just writing a check. Um,
Go
just
to
go,
try
participate.
something new.
Right,
Get pissed
right.
off if you don't like the art. At least you're doing
Exactly.
something.
That's it. You're showing that there's a need and there's a desire for it. If you don't have the financial wherewithal to write that check, even if it's a free event, just showing up at that event shows that there's a desire to continue these programs and there's a need for it, and we can figure out how to get the funding on the other side. But if nobody's showing up,
Don't sweat the small stuff.
yeah, but if nobody exactly, if nobody's showing up, then we're not gonna get the funding, and that's kind of, that's how they go away. Try something new, try something different. Um, and there's lots of great programs out there that are very inexpensive to kind of get your feet wet. I know I had mentioned classical music, orchestra, symphonies are really struggling right now. Many of them have great programs where you can go and have cocktails and bites, and they'll play some music and they'll talk a little bit about what's going on. And they're just great experiences.
Mhm.
Um, and it's broadening for you. I mean, I think, unless it's the specific intent of the show, how many times do you leave a show sad? Right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Have more of an artful life, right?
That's it. An artful life.
An artful life.
I might
Sounds
steal
good.
that.
Please do.
Yeah.
Brian, so honored to have you on the show. It was a blast. And thank you again, keeping arts alive. And I obviously I'll see you at the Cabot because,
See you
true
at the Cabot.
disclosure,
Yeah.
I am an usher at the Cabot.
Thank
So
you.
I just signed up for 3 more shows. I don't get paid, by the way. I get to
Thank
see
you.
free shows. So,
Right.
hey,
Right. Well, that's also, I mean, so in addition, it goes volunteer in an arts organization.
yeah, that's what I did.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot of fun. You get to meet new people,
Yep.
and it's a great thing to do with your time.
Yeah, why not? Thank you, my friend.
All right. Thank you so much, Glenn.
Well, I hope you loved my conversation with Brian, and thank you so much for joining me again on the video cast. I want you to go see some art. That's right. I want you to go see some art, or taste some art in the culinary world, or read some art or some poetry. By the way, we do have a Rotary poetry contest that I told you about. Go see classical music or hip hop. Go see a poetry slam. Go see the arts. The arts needs us. The arts needs us to be artists all over the world. Yeah. The arts need us to be artists. And sometimes the art of seeing great art is something we forget sometimes. Well, as always, thank you for joining me for the conversation. Thank you for being a part of the show. If you like the Action to Impact video cast and or our podcast, do tell a friend. I've got some great shows coming up over the summer here. Everything from introducing you to our next Rotary International president, to talking about AI, to talking about, I don't want to give away too much. So I better sign off so you can look forward to next week's video cast, don't you think? Until next time, take care of yourself and the world around you, and we'll hear you and see you next time on the Action to Impact video cast. Have a wonderful week, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.